Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I am your host, the One Take Man. If my voice is a little lower than usual, it's because I've kind of placed a lot of strain on it already today, so I'm just kind of going as low as I can while still being understandable. And on today's video, as the title before you already shows, I'm going to go through every season 4 Courage the Cowardly Dog episode and rank it from worst to best. I've already done 3 videos like this, so you should already know what's going down. So without too much further ado, I suggest we jump into the actual video. Also, for the sake of reference, my reference for what a for what an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog is what the fandom wiki says an episode is, and that means any standalone segment. That could mean the standalone narrative. That could mean the 11-minute segments that would be paired up to form an episode, or it could mean the full 22-minute mask. I'm not gonna separate it. Anyway, that disclaimer out of the way, and also the disclaimer that I'm ranking them based on what I think makes these episodes stand out, based on entertainment, action, humor, and horror. It's time I jump first of all into the honorable mention, namely The Fog of Courage. This I'll admit isn't part of season 4, but it was part of a suggested revival that first aired around 10 years later. It's entirely done in CG, but while I don't think it particularly nails the visual style of the show, the actual the actual narrative and the actual way it paces itself does actually make it more unique and more distinctive, and for that reason I think it deserves to be mentioned, even though it is only a 7-minute web short. If it were like full length, like if it were a little bit more fleshed out and part of season 4, I think I'd place it in the upper half. But then again, there are less things to mess up when you only have 7 minutes, so that might factor into my assessment of this. Regardless, it's time I delve into the actual list, starting with at number 25, Ball of Revenge. Yeah, obvious choice, but it had to be there. I don't think it is the worst episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog. There are 3 episodes of season 3 that I can directly point to that are definitely worse than this one. However, it still doesn't fare as well as it could have. My issue with this episode isn't necessarily that it's a villain team up episode. It's not even the fact that Eustace is the one who called up the villain meetup or the selection of villains. My issue with this episode is that the setup that the episode itself presents doesn't really allow for any of the for the villains who show up to really showcase what it is that makes them distinctive. Well, okay, they have moments, but overall more could have been done with them. Maybe Dilworth should have done a second 22-minute episode in order to have that be part of his, in order to have that as his final, in order to have that within his in order to properly showcase that. Or maybe he should have done 2 22-minute episodes and have it be like the one and only 2-parter Courage the Cowardly Dog ever did. Which, yeah, I think that would have allowed for a little bit more dimension and development with all of the figures involved. But still, unfortunately, that's not that's not what he decided to do. He decided to just cram them all, cram them all here. Admittedly, it's not all his merit. That there is something to be said for the writer of this episode, Michelle Lynn Dilworth, who I'm unsure whether or not is his daughter or his wife. But still, not there are. Still, it's an underwhelming episode. At number 24, we've got Son of the Chicken from Outer Space. This time, this is one of those. This is an instance where Dilworth has gone few too many times to the to the well with trying to insert one more callback to the to that initial What a Cartoon pilot, and what he tried to do wasn't really particularly I wouldn't say it was particularly memorable for the good reasons, because the titular son has like 3 heads, and they are more or less, as far as I can tell, themed around the Three Stooges, and they get into and whenever they try something, they kind of fail because because they can't put their heads together, pun totally intended, to make it happen. And unfortunately, that showcases that shows in how they don't really come across as a credible threat, especially when compared to what came before it. You could argue that that's the point, that they shouldn't have tried to measure up to the legacy of the of the initial chicken, but still, the way this episode itself turned out was not particularly good. Though I do have to appreciate that it is one of those episodes where the Bag farm where the Bag family actually handles their farmstead, which is surprisingly rare, come to think of it. At number 23, we've got A Beaver's Tale. If I'm not mistaken, the beavers from this episode are actually among the villains that I was unable to rank when I did the villain ranking last year, and that's because there isn't really anything about the beavers that I can really say. Nothing about them really makes them distinctive, or really makes them stand out in an interesting way. The idea behind this episode is that the Bag farm as well as the town of Nowhere get flooded, and Courage finds out that it's because some beavers built a dam, and that led to that led to a river just like flowing out and flooding everything. And and then Courage manages to talk to one of the beavers and help him rediscover his musical talent. And with their musical talent, they tear the dam down, which, okay, it's understandable, but it's not particularly an impressive episode. Really, it doesn't stand out, and it doesn't really make itself to be memorable. So for that reason, it only makes it to number 23. At number 22, we've got Rumpelkiltskin. A little hint as to Muriel's backstory, or more precisely her ancestry, the fact that she has has a Scottish ancestry. This episode has her persuaded by her uncle to create tartan patterns, and then he basically keeps her in a sweatshop until Courage busts her out, and helps the titular Kiltskin redefine himself. Um, all I can say is that while I can summarize this episode, I don't particularly find it memorable. And if I were to revisit any individual episodes of the show, this is not. This is closer to the bottom of the list than it is to the top. So yeah, Rumpelstiltskin only makes it to number 22. Number 21, the Nutcracker. I do have to appreciate this episode in concept at least, because it has rats running around a junkyard on with in a waltz rhythm as they chase down various Nutcracker toys. And while I appreciate the the marriage and the creativity of the concept, the actual implementation beyond that is quite slim, and it doesn't really capture the menace that I that I really would have expected from from this show. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to say that this episode only makes it so far as to cap off the bottom fifth of this list. At number 20, we've got Courageous Cure. This episode is very simple in concept and therefore only memorable through how cleanly it manages to do so. Basically, it's another alien abduction episode, and it's one where a bunch of aliens abduct Eustace and Muriel in order to test out a cure for various sicknesses on them, or in order to find out whether or not they have natural immunity. And then, surprise, surprise, it turns out Courage actually has a natural immunity to the cure, but only discovers that once he gets once he infects himself, which I have to admit is somewhat brave of him. However, the episode is very, very heavily streamlined to the point where there is literally only plot and no character. The only thing I can really recall about these aliens is that they have lots of hands and no legs. Lots of hands, lots of arms, and very spindly ones as well. So yeah, unfortunately. While I appreciate that Delor at least tries to go to that well one last time, the ultimate execution isn't as impactful as it could have been. So for that reason, Courageous Cure only makes it to number 20. At number 19, Muriel blows up. This episode, I have to admit, only makes it so high because of grow, expand, explode, and like the enthusiasm of that character to really make himself to really get that done. Because beyond that, I can't really say that there is anything notable or memorable about this episode. Still, at least it has a good idea of pacing and escalation, which allows it to stand out compared to the ones that came before it. At number 18, we've got House Calls. The basic idea here is that there is a haunted house which lives somewhat in disagreement with its which exists somewhat in disagreement to its inhabitant, and somehow, one of them, not exactly sure who, decides that they will move over next to the next to the bag farm, or they move the bag farm instead to them. I don't exactly recall. Anyway, the two households interact. The house itself gets jealous, and wild stuff happens. I have to admit, the main reason why why this episode is placed here is because of the concept, and because it has a decent execution of it. And I particularly like the banter between the titular house and its resident, whose name unfortunately I forgot. So yeah. While it has interesting ideas, it is not the best at engaging, at least not at engaging me with its ideas. So for that reason, only number 18. At number 17, Le Quack Balloon. The last standalone episode that that Le Quack has. He will go on to show up in Ball of Revenge. Also interesting, I just realized that season 3 is the only season without a Le Quack episode. Make of that what you will. Still, Le Quack is very much diminishing returns. Nowhere TV got by on just how wild and weird it is. With Le Quack Balloon, again, this is mainly just the outrageousness of what Le Quack is trying to do that really helps carry this episode. Because beyond that, it's kind of just there, to be honest. Moving on, at number 16, we've got Squatting Tiger, Hidden Dog. This episode, it's a homage to Hong Kong martial arts movies, and one in particular, at least in the title. Though when you look at the way the episode is actually carried out, the way it's paced and whatnot, you can't really say that is the case. It does show, even though it does showcase Courage himself going from receiving instruction from a person who apparently has has no motivation beyond just being helpful. It is then revealed that she is actually the true secret empress, and and Courage ended up supporting her her regime change. I think there are various other things that are going on within this episode, primarily with Muriel and Di Lung, and it's another episode where Eustace himself gets shafted, which disappointing, but happens. Still the rest is pretty good enough to bring it to number 16. At number 15, we've got Aqua Farmer. This is not the best Eustace episode in the season. We'll get to that soon enough. Aqua Farmer has Eustace going, oh come on, the Bag family going to an aquarium, and Eustace going, oh, I can do better than the dolphin, and that is exactly what he tries. He goes through training and goes and reaches until he reaches the point where he can outperform a dolphin at various aquarium shows, which it works. It does actually offer some interesting moments of entertainment. Beyond that, I'm just kind of meh. It's interesting and it's funny, but it's not among the better ones. It is quintessentially filler. At number 14, we've got Muted Muriel. I have to say, this episode, well, I get what it was going for. It was about Courage showcasing that Muriel matters to her, and that he cares for her. But really, did you need a separate episode to showcase that when the entire show is basically built around that? And that's all because Eustace is a dick. Like, why would she treat Courage the same way? That's character sabotage right there. Still, what helps push this episode just a little bit further is the is the creature that is the creature that gets summoned over the course of this episode, and just how effectively it is established as being, menacing and menacing and dangerous throughout, throughout the episode, to the point where when catharsis finally strikes in this episode, it is very satisfying. Moving on, we're halfway through the list at number 13, Food of the Dragon. This episode is about a dragon showing up at a Bag farmstead, and only one that, surprise, surprise, can't fly, but still wants to eat them. So the residents of the Bag farmstead give this dragon an offer: don't eat us, and we'll help you learn to fly. And they do just that. Except by the end of the episode, it turns out that the dragon is actually something of an ugly duckling. And by that I mean that instead of a flying dragon, it's actually a water dragon. So it's more likely to be interested in, fish and all that. Which, it's an interesting episode, and it goes through some interesting developments, and also has a pretty sweet ending. So I very much appreciate those aspects of it. And number 12, Profiles in Courage. Yeah, well, I have to admit, most of what I find interesting about this episode is the concept, the idea that Eustace and Muriel get their shapes cut out, get cut out shapes of themselves, and then those cut out shapes end up taking over their lives. That is a very clever and very and a quite intriguing, almost skin crawling execution of a solid horror concept. But however, the ending is completely unmemorable and uninteresting. So it could have done something. So it could have done something better. It could have done something better with itself. I'll say, at least as of right now. So it is for that reason that this episode only makes it to number 12. And there's another ambulance going by. Assuming you hear the background noise. Anyway, moving ahead. At number 11, The Uncommon Cold. This one is somewhat interesting. It once again involves magic, and it involves a bunch of people who are imprisoned by a wizard, creating a magical cold to deliver a message. Oh, there are more sirens. Sirens for what? Okay, another ambulance. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So anyway, as I said, the people this wizard imprisons send out a message through an uncommon cold, a distress signal, basically. And I have to say, what this episode does with its setting and with its characters, or more precisely with the villainous beast Big Bayou, is quite interesting, because he's a snake and he's very narcissistic, and so every time he sheds his skins, he wants to keep those skins and kind of have them around as lifelike sculptures. And that is why he imprisons people in order to fill up or stuff, taxiderm his skins. Not gonna lie, it's it's an interesting concept, and it is carried out in an intriguing way. Ultimately, though, I have to say that while it is and while a lot of the pacing works, and and the main premise is exciting, I am ultimately not compelled enough by it to really push it any higher up the list, so it just misses the top 10. At number 10, we've got Bride of Swamp Monster. This is an episode where this is once again a swamp-related episode. I think the second and last on this list, which sees the Bag family somehow ending up in a swamp, and the resident swamp monster who finds himself without his bride, mistakes Muriel for his bride and abducts her. Courage, in order to get her back, has to find the original bride. And okay, the villain motivation is kind of simple but works. The plotting is okay, I'll say. But beyond that, it is really the atmosphere, the ambiance of this episode that really pushes it over the edge. That really helps sell the terror and dread, and overall the stakes of this episode, and that makes it quite memorable. And then ultimately, happy ending. So that's also nice. At number 9, we've got Cabaret Courage. The last of the Showbiz is a Glamorous Lie episodes that Courage the Cowardly Dog would attempt. This episode has the Bag family visiting Hollywood, location of the stars, and finding themselves in a cabaret where they have to perform, and if they perform well, they get a whole bunch of riches, and if they don't, they get axed. So yeah, I think it is perhaps the most direct example of Showbiz is a Glamorous Lie, and it probably speaks to John Dilworth and how he felt overworked, given this was one of the last episodes that he did. He was and this was one of the last episodes that he did. Still, I have to appreciate how the story of the villain and how it is that he came to be, and I do appreciate the show for being able to showcase something that is truly bad in order to sell the point it's going for. And then the ending really helps bring the episode and one could argue the overall message of the show together quite well as well. Quite well also. At number 8, we've got Goat Pain. So yeah, opening up the last third with another one of those typical let's be empathetic episodes, where it's about a character who because he experiences pain wants everyone else to experience pain, especially everyone else that arrives and disturbs him. And unfortunately, the Bag family has to be there because Eustace needs it. And I have to say, the conflicts that the goat himself is really the star of the episode, and he really makes it interesting, because he his actions are compelling, his motivation is compelling, and then ultimately by the time the episode ends and you see and you see just what it is that and you see just how that matters to him, like that, that sells the episode, and that really helps once again prove the point of the show, and make the and helps keep the episode memorable, keep it fresh, keep it exciting. At number 7, we got Farmer Hunter, Farmer Hunted. This is the second and better Eustace episode of this season. It's about how Eustace always wanted to hunt alongside his older brother Horst, but Horst, who was very much a bully in his youth, always kept him from doing so. And now that he is older and learns that this once again becomes an option, he decides to go hunting and takes courage with him. The only problem is he has decided to hunt a deer who has gotten tired of being hunted, and so decides to become the hunter himself. And it is that cat and mouse game that that these two characters have that makes this episode all the more interesting, more dynamic. I can't really say anything about the ending, but the rest of this episode very much helps cement it for me within this final quarter of this list, or close enough to it. At number 6, we've got The Last of the Star Makers. The first minute or so of this little episode has some great animation, and it tells an outstanding story without any words whatsoever, and it's which helps. It truly helps tell the motivation and the impact behind everything that would come throughout the rest of this and throughout the rest of the episode. Also, I think this is the last episode where the our government entities are most directly made out to be the villains. The rest of the hijinks within this episode are pretty typical of cartoons, and allow Courage to showcase his creativity and his skills. It is really that first minute that helps distinguish it and frame the importance of what is going on. Followed by the last minute, when after the mother Star Maker dies, all of her children ascend, thereby recreating the thereby allowing the star making to continue. And I have to say, this world has a weird understanding of stars and of cosmology in general. But going beyond that, at number 5, Wrath of the Librarian. Opening up the last half of this list, we've got we've got something that a lot of children and possibly a lot of adults face about with overdue library books. I know I've had that issue, and not only do you have to bring it back, you also have to pay a fee, and and if you don't pay the fee, in this case, the people you love turn into the characters of the book, and I do have to appreciate the episode for how it manages to showcase the hijinks that result therefrom, and and I have to say the attempts Courage goes through in keeping his family relatively safe while also gathering the money are quite funny. So there is a great merger of humor and comedy within this episode that I can't help but respect. Also, last appearance of Dr. Vindaloo, I had to mention that. Next up, at number 4, we've got Windmill Vandals. I do have to say, this episode is among the first of season 4, and when I saw it after after having finished season 3, I was like, wow, this is absolutely a breath of fresh air. This is just great, like classic horror, not necessarily slasher, but more or less like I could say gothic horror, making I could say gothic horror and how it manages to merge suspense and merge suspense and tension and the overall magic and mystery into it, and how it ultimately culminates within this episode. All of that is very interesting. Though it does have one one quite noticeable flaw, namely it relies on the idea that the windmill has to keep spinning in order to keep the farmhouse safe from the titular vandals. But there are plenty of episodes before that when the windmill was either not spinning at all or was straight up destroyed and the vandals didn't show up. So maybe it's just a once in a given number of years thing that the windmill has to spin. Who knows? Anyway, moving on to the podium, we got at number 3 The Mask. One of the most chilling and yet engaging representations of abuse that any cartoon has ever attempted. Particularly a cartoon of its day, because now I think it's more common for them to touch upon more adult topics. Like, you could argue Steven Universe is all about overcoming familial abuse, but beyond that, this episode actually does it quite well, and it does so with a red herring, funnily enough, because Courage assumes that the main thread of the episode will actually come from Kitty, when instead that threat is actually aimed at Kitty's girlfriend. Let's be real, that's what they're supposed to be, girlfriends. Bunny, who is exploited by her significant other, and and I have to say that the way Mad Dog, the significant other, handles Bunny is even if not particularly graphic, particularly chilling for some, especially for someone who would have been in a situation similar to that. So I do have to appreciate Dilworth for being able to walk so Steven Universe could run. So yeah, great job with this one. At number 2, the silver medal goes to Perfect, the final episode, or more precisely, the final segment of the final episode. This one has Courage dealing with the fact that he keeps messing up, and so he decides, and so somehow a teacher is summoned in order to help him become perfect. However, in his anxiety of making sure he actually gets to be perfect, he messes up all the more. And then and it's really when he decides to shake away the definitions of upon him that come from the outside, that he really becomes not perfect, but he becomes something more important. He becomes himself, and I think that is a great message to end this series on, because it does in many ways cap off the the overall theme of this episode, of the series as a whole, about how to share empathy, and about how the lack of empathy leads to fear, and how you don't have to and how you don't necessarily have to stand out in order to be yourself. You stand out by being yourself. Like one comes at, like, the typical order in which this happens is one is typically reversed. You don't have to stand out in order to be allowed to be a weirdo. You can be a weirdo and then stand out to the to the right people. Once again, that message of empathy and acceptance and learn where it is that your true power lies. So it is a good cap to the overall show, but it is not the best episode of season 4. That honor instead goes to my number one place. Gold medal goes to Remembrance of Courage Past. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would have figured it out, once they saw that Perfect was at number 2. So for me, Remembrance of Courage Past is at number 1. It has great pacing, a very well done animation, a compelling narrative, and some very intriguing twists and turns that bring that really help emphasize the stakes and moreover the importance of the connection Courage found with the Bag family in general, but with Muriel in particular. That is something that I think, and that really helps make this episode stand out, and really helps and really helps to elevate the show in general to its to its best possible heights. And yeah, that was my video. That was my listing of every season 4 episode of Courage ranked from worst to best. And now I have ranked literally every single episode of this show from and maybe not overall from worst to best, but within each season. But there is still one thing that I would want to explore. So, namely, I'm going back to the very beginning of this video, where I talked about Ball of Revenge and all of the mistakes that episode made when it came to a villain team up. So it got me thinking, what would an effective villain team up look like within Courage the Cowardly Dog? Well, tune in next week to find out. Until then, however, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the individual episodes or to my opinions on them, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about various book-related and literature topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, you have the option of supporting me on Patreon as well, where depending on the level at which you pledge, you can receive various perks. Among them, early access to videos and scripts, both for this channel and the aforementioned main one. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.